The EU just went after its own startups instead of big tech. Let me show you the receipts. In May 2026, the EU AI Office launched its first formal investigation under the General-Purpose AI Model Rules that took effect last August. And the target was not Google, not OpenAI, not Meta. It was a European company. Reports indicate the investigation is focused on a mid-tier European AI firm over alleged gaps in technical documentation and systemic risk assessments. The compliance machinery Brussels spent years building appears to have fired its first shot inward, at the exact companies the continent needs most. In my analysis, the EU AI Act is functioning as the most expensive gift bag big tech has ever received, and European taxpayers funded the wrapping paper. Here is how. Point 1. Compliance cost as a moat. The AI Act requires providers of general-purpose AI models to maintain detailed technical documentation, conduct adversarial red teaming, and publish training data summaries. For a company like Google DeepMind with hundreds of policy staff, this is a Tuesday. For a 30-person startup trying to ship a fine-tuned model for medical imaging, this is 6 months of engineering time redirected from product to paperwork. The estimated compliance cost for a high-risk AI system runs between 200,000 and 400,000 euros annually according to industry surveys from early 2026. That is seed-round money burned on lawyers, not on GPU clusters. The evidence suggests this creates a structural advantage for incumbents who can amortize compliance across billions in revenue while startups bleed out. Point 2. Inference logging and latency penalties. The Act mandates that deployers of high-risk systems maintain logs of system operation for traceability. Sounds reasonable until you realize that comprehensive inference logging introduces measurable latency, overhead, and storage costs. Big tech runs its own data centers. A startup renting capacity on AWS or Azure now pays twice, once for compute, once for the compliance logging infrastructure layered on top. The technical consequence is that European AI products will be slower and more expensive to operate than their American or Chinese competitors, not because of worse engineering, but because of regulation-induced overhead baked into every single API call. Point 3. The chilling effect on open weight distribution. This is the one that should terrify you. Under the Act, providers who release open-weight models are still responsible for downstream compliance if those models are classified as high-risk or systemic risk. That means if you release your weights publicly, and someone fine-tunes your model for a use case the EU classifies as high-risk, you could be on the hook. The rational response from any startup founder with a functioning survival instinct is to stop releasing open models in the EU entirely. And that is exactly what appears to be happening. Multiple European AI labs have reportedly delayed or geo-restricted open-weight releases since August 2025. The regulation designed to make AI safer is, in practice, making AI more closed, more concentrated, and more controlled by the exact corporations that already dominate the market. If you are watching this and thinking clearly about what is actually happening in this industry, you already know this channel does not pull punches. Subscribe. Because the people making these rules are not watching channels like this, and they should be. Now here is the counterargument I hear most often. Regulation protects citizens from reckless AI deployment, and the compliance costs are just the price of doing business responsibly. I take that seriously. Nobody wants an unregulated medical diagnostic model hallucinating treatment plans. But here is the problem with that argument. It assumes that compliance equals safety. It does not. A 200-page technical documentation package does not make a model safer. Rigorous evaluation, diverse training data, and transparent failure mode reporting make a model safer. The current framework, in my analysis, optimizes for bureaucratic legibility, not for actual harm reduction. And the companies best equipped to produce legible bureaucracy are not the scrappy teams building novel architectures. They are the trillion-dollar incumbents who wrote the lobbying briefs that shaped the regulation in the first place. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is how regulatory capture works in every industry, and the evidence suggests AI is no exception. So here is where we land. The EU AI Act appears to be consolidating market power in the hands of the companies it claims to regulate. The first enforcement action hit a European firm, not an American giant. Compliance costs function as barriers to entry. Open-weight releases are freezing, and the startups that could build a competitive European AI ecosystem are either relocating, pivoting, or dying quietly. Brussels says this is about safety. The outcomes say otherwise, so I will ask you directly. Is the EU AI Act protecting you, or is it protecting big tech from competition? Pick a side.